Do you like movies and games also? Listen, so much more they all know. Vice, Pyro, Lotus and friends. Welcome to Corrective Consciousness.
Welcome to Corrective Consciousness, episode 156, the podcast where we explore the inanity of pop culture. I'm your host, vysethebold, and this is
Lotus Prince.
And we have another great episode here for you. We previously have done, I believe, both a Castlevania and in particular, Metroidvania episode. But I wanted to go over the works of Koji Igarashi in general, because Bloodstained has recently come out, and I've been playing it, and I'm like addicted to it. I haven't been this addicted to a Metroidvania in a while. I probably since Hollow Knight was the last big one that I played, but this one is a fantastic return to form. It plays like I wanted to. It's everything that I want in a spiritual successor to the Igavanias, if you will. That's what he calls them. So I'm a huge fan of it. I want to talk a little bit about it, not too much, of course, because I don't want to spoil anything. But it's a fantastic experience. It may be the best game of its type. I might even go ahead and say that, even though
I get Castlevania 64.
Well, Iga had nothing to do with the Castlevania 64 games.
Yeah, but that's also not a Metroidvania. It's also not like an Igavania style anyway.
Yeah, in fact, he was the one who wrote them out of continuity.
It's bullshit. No more Reinhardt. Fuck this.
Into the pit where they belong. No. I actually quite like the second one, the Legacy of Darkness, or rather the remake, I guess.
Yeah, that's more. It's more like a complete version of the game, kind of. Although I will say though,
it's like an extended cut.
Yeah. Although I will say though, the original Castlevania 64 has probably the coolest final boss Dracula of any Castlevania game. I'm not even kidding. You can
play the whole original game after you beat the initial quest in Legacy of Darkness. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, that's insane.
Yeah. Like, it includes the Reinhardt stuff.
Nice.
Afterwards. So, and you can play as like a bunch of different characters in that game. So
yeah, there are like 2 additional characters. There's like a werewolf character. Like, it's pretty sweet.
Well, the werewolf character is the main character of Legacy of Darkness.
That's cool.
There's like a magician type character, like a Silpha kind of character.
Okay.
And I think there's the knight as well. You can play as the knight. So anyway, so Koji Igarashi is most famous for his tenure with Konami when he was the director of the Castlevania series in general. He first worked on Rondo of Blood in a special thanks capacity. They have never really said what he really did on Rondo of Blood, but he probably did some consulting kind of stuff on it while he was at Konami. That was the first Castlevania he has credits in. It's that one is probably the triumph of the original style of games. It's a fantastic game. That was for the PC Engine, of course.
Well, come to think of it, you said that's the first game he has credits in, but technically he made the original Castlevania, right? It's just that he didn't. Because I know in the original game everyone had like fake credits.
No, he actually did not work on any Castlevania before Rondo of Blood.
Oh wow!
Yeah, in fact, his first game, the first 2 games that he worked on, were in 1992. Daytona Twinbee, which is I believe the second Twinbee, or the third Twinbee game, rather, and Gradius 2, and I think they were both the PC Engine versions of those.
Okay.
PC Engine CD. So he probably had some programming knowledge. I'm sure more than enough programming knowledge for that system, because Konami was a pretty big progenitor of that system. They really stuck up for that system. They have some really fantastic releases on the PC Engine, or TurboGrafx 16, if you will. None of them came to the America, by the way, which is a big shame because all the Konami games on that system in particular are really, really good. Castlevania Rondo of Blood may be the best game on the system by a lot of people's measurement, and I don't think you'll find too many people arguing with that.
The music's super good.
Everything about it's good. It's the first anime style game
it's
in the
got
series
like
too.
cutscenes and everything.
Well, not only that, but the art style.
Mm-hmm.
The art style is very anime-ish.
That's true. You are a pretty chunky, like barbarian-looking character in the original games.
Yeah, they very much are taking from Frazetta
Yep.
kind of works and Conan the Barbarian kind of stuff.
And Dungeons and Dragons Ravenloft.
Ravenloft as well. Yeah. No, in fact, I think two of the covers, Castlevania 1 and Castlevania 3, are directly ripped off of Frazetta covers.
Oh yeah. But and then 2 was Ravenloft, right? Like one of them just straight up has the thing from Ravenloft.
Yeah, all three of them are ripoffs.
That's incredible.
And that's really funny because they're iconic video game covers, and they're completely it's not even like a stretch. It's just like a complete ripoff.
Yeah.
Contra as well is based. Both of the guys on the front are stenciled over pictures of Arnold from Commando and Predator, I think.
That's
so
great.
Yeah. They're both Arnold, even though one of them kind of looks like Stallone. But if the original picture is actually both of them are Arnold.
And isn't Solid Snake like Kyle Reese?
Very much so. Yeah. It's just the way things were done back then. But I mean, a lot of Konami games were love letters to action titles of the past.
Revenge of Shinobi was like Sonny Chiba.
Oh yes, very much so.
The eyes.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I think Yuzo Koshiro. No. The guys from M2, the director from M2, put his eyes in the newest incarnation.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Because he's just like, why not?
Yeah.
You got to get Sonny Chibas out of there because you have to pay him a likeness fee or whatever.
Yeah.
But his major work, Koji Igarashi, came in the form of Tokimeki Memorial, which is Konami's visual novel series. This is like a dating sim kind of series, and a lot of it's one of the iconic games of its type at the time. And apparently it's very, very good, but none of them have ever been translated into English, so they're kind of impenetrable to. It's one of like Konami's tentpole series that never got any traction in the West whatsoever, even amongst fan communities. So it's a shame, but apparently he was the scenario writer and programmer, so like the big guy on that. And that's really where he found his sea legs, I think. I know this game mostly because it does have a shmup in it, a hidden shmup if you join the computer club. It's called Force Gear, and it has like some references to Gradius in it.
Nice.
It's basically like a one-level game, but it's really fun because it's kind of like playing a demo of a game that never existed.
Sure.
And it has really great sprites and like all the quality you would expect from a Konami game, even though it's only one level. But it's pretty awesome. You can actually find that game stripped out of Tokimeki Memorial like online, or you could buy it. Some people are making like repros of that if you want to play that on a PC Engine or something like that, or an emulator. I definitely recommend it. But he really, really, really got famous for being the assistant director. A lot of people don't know this, but he was the assistant director on Castlevania Symphony of the Night. He apparently did, though, take over directing duties like halfway through. So you can kind of count it as his. He's the person that basically owns the identity of the series from after that. Have you ever played Castlevania Symphony of the Night?
No, but I mean, I've seen actually back in college, one of our friends. I just watched him do I think it was like a 100% playthrough.
It's a fantastic game.
Yeah, I think he did the whole. I think he did the whole game. Maybe it wasn't 100%, but I think he did the whole game and every boss in like one sitting, like 3 hours or something.
So just to point out how revolutionary this game was in terms of like games as a whole and the series at the time. This was the first time you didn't play as the Belmont,
Yeah.
which you always played as a Belmont in Castlevania games before. Basically, a male heir of of these vampire killers that constantly go after Dracula and try to kill him every 100 years was the original lore.
Well, the cool thing though is that it pulls a Metal Gear Solid 2 because you do play as a Belmont for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, so actually, this is a direct sequel to Rondo of Blood. You actually play the last 5 minutes of Castlevania Rondo of Blood in the first 5 minutes of Symphony of the Night. It's similar to what they did with Dragon's Trap. That was like the first game where I ever saw that. Or the earliest game.
What I really like about that, by the way, is that this is on the PS1. I think it's like a technically superior system to the TurboGrafx.
Sure.
So it's cool to see like that thing with a different engine, like everything looks and sounds better. It's cool when games do that.
Yeah, in fact, Richter, when you control him, is a lot more nimble.
Okay.
He's a lot less stiff than in Rondo of Blood, and it's actually kind of funny because even that was even Richter was a big step up from Simon in earlier games or Trevor in earlier games. He was a lot more nimble than his forefathers, but he is like like you could double tap run as Richter in Castlevania Symphony of the Night. You can do a down kick that'll be quick. You could do all kinds of things. You can even do the the limp whip kind of thing, like
like in Castlevania 4.
Castlevania 4, yeah. Also, his sub weapons are a blast to use. So much fun. Like the iconic cross and holy water and knives. Even the knives are fun to use, even though they're historically the worst. So this game was just great. You play as a side character, from Castlevania 3, Alucard, which is Dracula's son. They remade him artistically. He's very much Bishonen. Like he's not Bishonen. Is that the proper term?
I don't remember. I know what you're talking about,
okay.
But I don't remember.
He's
a pretty boy.
He's a very much a feminized man. So it's very hard to tell that he's masculine. He is a male in
he has that kind of Final Fantasy 6 and onward like the character portrait, like wispy kind of look. Yeah.
Yeah, he's very pretty, and so is Richter in the game for that matter. He looks very Tom Cruise in an Interview with the Vampires, and I think that was the point.
Okay.
So that would be contemporary. So this game is fantastic. Because you're not a Belmont, you are first of all a vampire. So you have powers that pertain to being a vampire, including eventually turning into other forms like a wolf and a bat and a mist, which is actually references to the original Dracula novel.
Yeah, Bram Stoker. Yeah.
Yep. And you also have a ton of different types of weapons. He mainly uses swords, but there are tons of them all over the place, and you get them by finding drops from defeating enemies.
Yeah, and rare drops. It's like very RPG-like. In fact, you can get experience and level up as well.
Yeah, and there's just like a lot of craziness in the game. I should also point out that this is like the first game that is completely based on exploration. It is similar. The reason why they call this the first Metroidvania, because it has a similar structure to Super Metroid, in that, or the original Metroid, in that you have a continuous world and there are parts that are gated off, but you can kind of go off and do your thing, and then you need to find specific abilities or keys to move forward.
Oh, and speaking of which, also like Super Metroid and the other Metroid games after it, you start off fully powered up, and you get all your powers taken away from you within a few minutes of the game, and you have to like get them back as you slowly advance.
It also has some very iconic voice acting.
With the echo filter.
Yeah, and it's also some of the worst and best, therefore best voice acting.
Well, it's like Resident Evil 1. Like, if that game came out today, we'd be like, are you fucking kidding me? But because it was, like, 20 years ago, now we have a sort of nostalgia for it. So we're like, so we just like the what is a man, a miserable pile of secrets. Even forgetting the voice acting, the line itself is just janky as hell. Like, what?
Apparently, that's based off of, an old play or something like that, like an old, but it's Victorian, so like it just sounds stupid.
But enough talk. It's like you said like one sentence, dude. Like,
who said "have at you"?
Yeah, have
Same
at
could
you.
be said of all religions, but yeah, it's
have
very
at you
theatrical.
sounds like something when you're about to like do a sword fight.
Yeah. Exactly. It's very Shakespearean.
In fact,
let's
actually,
just put it that way.
maybe I'm thinking that because I think they actually say that, like, have at thee, in, like, Peter Pan, the play.
Yeah. So it's very theatrical and over the over
he
the top.
throws the wine glass and it breaks. Nobody fucking does that. Like, but it's just it has this like you said, like this theatrical quality to it. And it's, by the way, it's really funny when Igarashi himself does that on video.
Oh, sure.
He's done that twice.
He's always drinking wine. Yeah.
It's so funny.
I don't drink wine.
That's a great line. I do not drink wine. Nice.
Yeah, a lot of innuendo in that original movie. But anyway, this is a fantastic game. It is considered by a lot of people to be like one of their top 10 favorites of all time, like for old farts in gaming. It's a great, certainly one of the best games of the PlayStation 1. It's up there with Metal Gear Solid and the Final Fantasy games of that. That era, as well as a lot of other favorites. So it's really, really good. Part of what makes it fun, other than its structure, the Super Metroid structure is just perfect for a 2D action game. It's so much fun to put. It's basically the culmination of it. In fact, some people might even like this game better because it has RPG elements on top of all that. There's leveling up, there's stats, there's armor, different equipment.
I was just going to say, your equipment and clothing is very customizable. I mean, you can't see your clothing when you equip different clothing. You always look like default Alucard, but there's still a lot of stuff to equip.
Yeah, and part of what makes this game so great is the charm of it. There's a lot of like nonsense in it.
Yeah.
There's like all kinds of really cool weapons that you will not use because you have like easier to find stronger ones, but there are ones that have kind of like unique abilities and things like that are just fun to mess around with. That's what's so cool about it. It just has kind of like a childlike like wonderment to it. Almost like it's just like, oh man, what is this? Like, what does this sword do? It's weird. It says
also,
verboten when I when I swipe it.
Also, speaking of exploration, I think there's a piece of armor that gets like stronger and stronger the more you fill in the map by exploring it.
Yeah.
So exploration directly benefits you if you're wearing it, which is pretty cool.
There's even a sword that is starts off as a familiar, so it kind of like is a summon like hangs out around you and like attacks other enemies.
Slice as it attacks.
Yeah, so that familiar, if you use it for long enough and if it levels up enough, actually becomes a sword.
Oh, nice. I did not know that. I just knew that you had a sword, an imp, and a fairy, I think.
Yeah, so the more you level up the familiar, the more damage the actual sword goes if you equip it. But you cannot... Nice. The catch is that you cannot equip the sword while you have the familiar equipped.
Well, that makes sense.
So you, in order to level it up, you actually cannot be using it.
Yeah.
But later on, towards the end of the game, you can of course use that, and it'll be one of the best swords if you leveled it up. It's just fun. I mean, there's crazy stuff in it. Like you can find knuckle dusters, like
Yeah.
brass knuckles. Even though why would you play it like that?
Yeah.
Like I guess if you really want to, you could play it in a bunch of different styles and see how far you can get, that kind of thing. There's also like a lot of like fun little Easter eggs. Like you could sit at the confessional in the church, and a ghost of a priest will show up, and there's like two different scenarios. With him, the priest will either be an evil ghost and like stab you in the confessional, which is really cool, or he'll like bless you, and you'll get healed from it. So there's all kinds of stuff. You can actually sit where the priest would be, and a ghost of somebody who is performing confession will show up as well.
That's cool.
There's all kinds of things. It's also a beautiful game. It has some of the best music in video game history as well.
And the environments are gorgeous.
Yeah, and it also has a secret second half of the game.
Yeah, that's the coolest part.
Yeah.
Like, I'm nearly done with the game, and you are nearly done with the game. But for a full ending, there's a whole other section. Like, the game literally just doubles in size, and it's mind-blowing if you didn't know about it.
I mean, it's much quicker the second time around because you have
because you're talented
few
now.
things
Yeah.
impeding you. There's only like a couple abilities that you can get from that point. But yeah, it's still really cool, and there's some really challenging bosses there as well. So that's an absolutely fantastic game. And
what's also cool, by the way, is in the library you can buy videos of each boss, and it shows you like a quick clip of how to just destroy like the best way to beat the bosses. It's pretty great.
Like their weaknesses and things like that. Yeah. Just to tell you how much I love this game, when the PS2 first came out, there was very little to play on it. I was playing Symphony of the Night mostly on it. It's also a really good time to be able to buy it. It's available on a lot of different systems now, but most notably so the PS4 has probably the best version of it. In that it has some extra modes where you can play as Richter and Maria after you beat the game. It also has cleaned up voice acting if you want good voice acting and good dialogue, but who wants that? But
was the PS4 version like a remastered PSP version?
Yeah, so you are correct. So they originally made that version for the PSP, Dracula X Chronicles, which had Rondo of Blood and this on it, as well as a remake of Rondo of Blood, which was the main reason to buy it, or the selling point. But a lot of people just bought it just to play Symphony of the Night. Yeah, so they cleaned up that and put it on the PS4 recently in the Dracula X collection, which has Rondo of Blood and Symphony of the Night on it. A very great collection. Really good way to play them. I recommend that version over them all. I wouldn't even bother with the other versions, to be honest, because it just has the extra features, and it's in 1080p and all that jazz. So after that, that release, he had a few others, but he had one other little-known game called Eldergate. I don't know anything about it. But moving on, he was basically the Castlevania guy at Konami.
He has so many Castlevania releases. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, he produced them all from this point on. He was the one that shepherded the series and shaped the timeline and all that jazz. He did promotional work for Circle of the Moon, which is the first Castlevania game after Symphony of the Night that was like that. There was a remake of Castlevania, the X68000 game with Castlevania Chronicles, but Castlevania Circle of the Moon was the first, Igavania, as it were. He did not do work on the actual game itself, though. So this was the GBA game that came out along with the release of the GBA at the time.
Yeah, speaking of which, it seems that he did work on a bunch of the GBA games, the DS games, the PS2 games. Like it just keeps going.
Yeah. Just to name a few, Circle the Moon was probably the black sheep out of the bunch because in this one you are a Belmont and you only have whips in this game. So if you go back to it, it's not as fun. It's not as well made as the other ones. But Harmony of Dissonance is where it starts to get really good, and then Aria of Sorrow is the final one for the GBA. That's a really good game. You actually play as like reincarnated Dracula.
Nice.
And that game's really, really good. It's a lot of fun. You actually could play that on the Wii U right now. Currently, you could buy that. It's an amazing game. It's a lot of fun and also has like a lot of fun things that you can do in it, kind of like Symphony of the Night. It just has some like fun Easter eggy kind of stuff. I think you can collect chairs in it. Like it's just like goofy stuff.
Okay.
And then he went on to make a PS2 Castlevania game that's kind of hard to go back to. Not a huge fan of it. I wasn't even a huge fan of it when it came out. It's called Lament of Innocence. It was like the earliest game in the timeline for a while as well. I don't really recommend going back to it, but some people like it. But I found the environments to be so samey that it was very boring to me. And then he made a game called Nanobreaker after that, which was a really odd game. Only huge fans should go after that. But the crowning achievements, if you ask me, of his Castlevania stuff are his DS games. I really like, other than Symphony of the Night, of course. Dawn of Sorrow is the sequel, direct sequel to Aria of Sorrow, DS.
Yeah,
this
Dawn,
is the first
Sorrow, yeah. Every DS game, it's like Super Nintendo. Everything's gotta start with Super. With DS, everything's gotta have the initials D and S.
Yeah. I love this game. It's really, really good. It's one of the best Igavanias. It's right up there. It's so much fun. It's really, really good. Then Curse of Darkness, which is like the second 3D PS2 era one. That game is much derided. I actually like it better than a lot of other fans. I actually like it better than Lament of Innocence. You play as like a demon forge, like a weaponsmith of Dracula. It's an unusual one. It also came out on the Xbox, the original Xbox, which I had it on. And then the other two DS games, Portrait of Ruin is actually a lot of people's favorite DS game of the DS run because you actually play as both a Belmont and a descendant of Silpha at the same time. You play as a mage and a Belmont, and you switch on and off. It's actually the direct sequel to Castlevania Bloodlines.
Oh, nice.
Which is really cool. This one had the gimmick here. This also has music by our favorite Yuzo Koshiro. It's really, really good. It has like a globe-trotting kind of atmosphere to it. It's like one of the only games that kind of has that, kind of like Bloodlines does. Because the all of the maps are like smaller maps, but they're contained within like haunted paintings. So you enter in these worlds, like there's like an Egyptian themed world. There's like even a circus themed world. There's like a whole bunch of different themed worlds that you go into, and it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy that. My favorite though is Order of Ecclesia, which is the last DS one. I love that game. It's probably the most challenging of the Igavania games, and it kind of feels like Castlevania 2. It kind of has like you're helping out villagers and things like that with quests and stuff cool. In that one. It also has some very challenging boss battles. I really, really love that. He also worked on Castlevania Judgment.
The best game.
So this is the much derided Power Stone-like fighting game.
Yeah, 3D fighting game on the Wii.
where they made Maria into like a Lolita character.
Yeah.
And she and yeah, over the top like art design from the guy who did Death Note as well, and it's very obviously Death Note. Um, it just doesn't fit in. I mean, it has some good music. That's about it. That was for the Wii too. That was really goofy. Now this is a little known fact. Igarashi also worked on Scribblenauts as the Japanese localizer, which is quite a task. To take a game that's entirely based off of like what you type in.
Yeah.
Localizing that for an entire other a language, it must be a Herculean feat.
A miserable pile of keywords.
I believe a bunch of Castlevania references and stuff like, and even himself, he inserted into the game, which is pretty cool if you have that version of it. I mean, he also oversaw Castlevania: The Adventure Rebirth, which was an M2 favorite, one of my favorite WiiWare titles. Great game. And he also has a special thanks credit on Castlevania the arcade game. This is the one game I know you've played.
Yeah, like the only Castlevania games I played are 64, which nobody likes, and the arcade game that was Japanese exclusive and you could only play it in like very specific locations, like in America.
Basically, round ones are like the only places that you could play it.
Yeah, a game that we weren't even like meant to get. That's the one I played. Yeah.
It's similar to a light gun game, but
it's a light whip game.
Yeah, you use like a Wii style remote interface.
Yeah, like a PS Move, and you keep flicking your wrist to whip, and it's actually kind of tiring to play.
And this is he only has a couple more games. He has Odomedius Excellent. He worked as producer on this. So this was the kind of spiritual successor to Parodius, or which was a parody of Gradius. So get the lineage there.
Yeah, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
It's basically like a sexy parody of Parodius, but yeah, that had some Castlevania elements to it too. There was like a DLC character that was a Belmont, I think. Yeah, you could be a character that turns into a ship. That's cool.
Like you do. What a weird connection.
He made a Kinect game for the 360 called Lead Me's, which I didn't know about. But I guess I quickly wanted to go over. He left Konami after that, and it's a shame too because he was all about Castlevania. But Konami was just going through, and is still kind of going through this phase where they they took all their old talent and just like basically disrespected them and threw them into dungeons.
Yeah.
It's really terrible what they did. I mean, they did it to Kojima, who was like their number one guy in terms of like money making and stuff like that. Really terrible stuff. And he was I think Igarashi was consulting on like some of their mobile titles and stuff like that, and he just hated it, so he left.
Yeah.
So thankfully he had this Kickstarter, and we have two Bloodstained games. One that's like an extra game, which turned out to be really good. It's called Curse of the Moon, and it's a 8-bit style game that is really, really good. It's done in the style of like Castlevania 3. And you've played a little bit of that, right?
Yes.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's really cool in that it's like a Nintendo game that looks better than a Nintendo game would have back
it's like
then.
Shovel Knight esque.
Yeah. And what was also cool is that going to, like, in Castlevania 3, I believe you could choose paths. It would be like, do you want to take, like, the upper route or the lower route? Whereas in Bloodstained Curse of the Moon, you actually walk up or down the stairs to get to the next level. It's, like, slightly smoother to go from one level to another.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also cool that you have different characters with different, like, completely different movesets regarding how they fight and like what their speeds
One's
are
a whip
and things like that.
too.
Yeah, you got a whip character. You have someone who could like freeze water or whatever, so they could walk on it. Or it's really clever how they make the game work for everybody.
It's really good. I Got about halfway through this one. I now that I'm playing the actual, Bloodstained game, Curse of the Moon, I should go back to it because there are references to it. Do you remember the train boss that was really neat?
I think so.
Well, he shows up in like a 3D, more realized form
cool.
in the next one. So,
That's cool.
yeah, this game is a lot of fun, and they get the tone right and everything. This is an Inti Creates joint, so it turned out really well. Just like most of their games turn out pretty good. Unfortunately, Gunvolt did not, but or no, Gunvolt did. Rather, it was what was the one the one that everybody was disappointed on, the Kickstarter game.
Mighty Number 9?
Mighty Number 9, yeah. I'm sorry about that. So, the Gunvolt games, though, are fantastic, and so is this. But I wanted to quickly just say what I love so much about Bloodstained. Bloodstained is everything that the old Igavanias are. Like, he clearly knew what made them good. The DS games were great, but you always had this feeling that it would never reach up to the greatness of the Symphony of the Night, just simply because it was on a portable system and had all the limitations thereof. This game very much aims to reference Symphony of the Night and tops it in a lot of ways. It adds a lot of what made the DS games fun. And adds a bunch of new stuff. I just love it. There's some really funny dialogue. I actually like the dialogue quite a bit. There's some fun guest appearances. Did you know that David Hayter's in the game?
Nice.
Very obviously so. He's the narrator, which is when I first noticed him, but he's also a character in the game. He's actually the guy with the whip.
Nice.
And his name is... let me see. His name is Zangetsu, which means a moon that can be viewed during the morning.
Huh.
But also, the voice actor for Alucard shows up.
Nice.
With that echo filter.
Nice.
Like he and his name is Orlok Dracul.
Oh, come on.
And he looks almost exactly like Alucard, but
that's
he
like
changed his skin color to black. It's really funny. It's so on the nose. It's amazing.
That's the most ridiculous fucking name.
Oh, not only that, but like Count. Do you know who Count Orlok is?
Yeah, he's Nosferatu.
Who is the ripoff of Dracula?
Yeah, that's brilliant.
So the ripoff of Castlevania.
Yeah, they're just calling themselves out.
Is the character that is literally was ripping him off back in the 20s.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's really amazing. They call him OD, which is
OD.
Yeah, it's just pretty cool, and the interactions with him are really funny. When I was like, that can't be the original voice actor, and I went to IMDb right before we recorded, and lo and behold, it's him.
Nice.
His name is Robert Belgrade. But you probably won't listen to me anyway.
Oh yeah, that'd be amazing if your PC can take Blu-rays, if they have some shenanigans. If you put a Blu-ray into the PC, why are you listening to the soundtrack? Like, you should do it naturally in the game. So
it like even a lot of the enemies are like a wink and a nod away from being Castlevania enemies. It's just so goddamn close. Like, some of them are like basically like 3D realized versions of enemies from Symphony of the Night, but they're named different.
Sure.
It's really great though. There are a lot of missions to do in this, kind of similar to the DS games. A few of them are to like avenge like off-screen characters that have died. Like, your mission is to kill like 5 of this type of demon, that kind of thing, and then you can turn it in for a reward. All of the names are names of characters in previous Castlevania games. Like
Nice.
you have to avenge Simon, you have to avenge
That's
Charlotte, you have to avenge Jonathan. There's like a Trevor at some point, Ralph, who are the same character actually.
Yeah, that's great.
There's like a whole bunch of them. It's so on the nose. I was dying as I was looking through the names. I was like, yep. It's very, very, very much on the nose. But it's fun to do that. There's even like a cooking synthesis system, which is a lot of fun. So just as before, the enemies drop all different kinds of things. But some of the rare drops will be things like food, like eggs or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like a cooking system, and every time you cook a new entree, or you eat a new entree, you get a permanent stat boost. So you want to do it. So it's really fun to do. There are certain characters that want specific foods to eat, and they reward you for that. There's some characters that want specific items for you to get, so you can synthesize those or buy them. It's just a lot of fun. It's a blast to play. I'm really, really enjoying it so far. So hats off to them. It may have even topped Symphony of the Night for me because it's all of it but better. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The music is on point. There's enough weirdness in there and goofy stuff. And I think more of the alternate ways of play make more sense. So you can, of course, do the normal thing where you use the various melee weapons, but you can also use whips in the game, and there are different kinds of whips. You can also use guns in the game as well. You can do like a gunslinger kind of mode, and you can switch different ammo types and stuff. It's actually quite involved. I don't play like that, but I could see how that would be a lot of fun. Each enemy also had one of their drops will be a shard, and the shards will give you other abilities, or it'll give you, like, instead of in Castlevania where you would have a sub weapon like holy water or something like that, you'll do like a summon of a bat, and you can upgrade that as well, and that takes up magic points. So and leveling up all that stuff is a lot of fun, and trying to get all the rare drops is a lot of fun too. So I think you're really going to enjoy it whenever you get to it. I know you have it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're really gonna love it, and it's as good as you want it to be. It is a little. I will warn our fans that it is a little janky. It has some glitchy stuff going on with it, but I think that will mature over time. I'm playing it on PC. Did you get it for PS4? If I know you.
Yeah,
will?
I got it on
Okay.
PS4. Yeah.
Yeah, I would stick to those two versions, or the Xbox version if that's or the Xbox One version if that's a thing. I can't remember if it is. The Switch version is unfortunately very visually downgraded, like to the point where it's distracting. I would keep away from that from now, unless they come up with a major update. For sure, but I'm playing the PC version. It's really great, but I did have it crash one time. I just looked at a journal entry, and it crashed. So definitely save often until it becomes a more mature product. But it's an amazing game. So you'll have to update me on how you feel about it, Lotus, once you get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
So having said that, I think this was a really good discussion of Igarashi's history and what he went through, and the Castlevania titles, of course, that led up to this. I'll probably be talking about this game more in weeks to come as I progress through it. I'm about like a third to almost halfway through the game, so somewhere in there. But I'm getting there, so I think we should move on to our weeklies, though.
Why, sure. So regarding fan comments, Anthony Cooper said, Oh man, Shadow of the Empire was one of my favorites in the 64. I would love to see a Dash Rendar movie.
That'd be awesome. I think he's
yeah.
written out of continuity at this point, though.
I know, it's a shame. He was kick-ass. Living Corpse said, the Disaster Report series, they had a spin-off game called City Shrouded in Shadow, where the disaster, I think we actually mentioned this on the podcast when we saw little teasers, where the disaster is many of Japan's famous kaiju and mecha from various companies. So, like, people have to, like, deal with the destruction that they caused. Yeah. The game was never released stateside because of the poor reception the PS3 and PS4 Godzilla game got. I kind of get that, even though it's not even the same type of game at all, but that was not a good game. Which was also affected by the Fukushima disaster, but the nuclear reactors you're supposed to attack and feed off of have been renamed as G energy reactors. Yeah, I remember that.
It's really a shame. Most good Godzilla stuff is like most of the video games are poor. It really stinks, and most of the American adaptations are not nearly as good as the Japanese ones. So it kind of stinks. You kind of have to import the good movies, unfortunately.
Yep. And then Dracologist said, I think the term for like the fleshy levels in games like R-Type and Contra are called mandatory womb level. Yeah, right?
I don't think anybody ever calls them that.
I always call them that. What are you talking about? And he said, well, he needed some help with keys, hint, hint. Mind you, going back to Red Alert, because we were talking about that briefly, he said Red Alert by default is very silly. It starts with Soviets time traveling to kill Einstein. It's like... Yup, that'll do it.
They kill him like on the street before he's like when he's just an artist. I think
it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, it's just like the guy dressed up as Hitler is so goofy looking. It's so funny.
Yup. Now going back to like the Hotline Miami soundtrack, he was saying Perturbator, Electric Dream. That's where it's at.
That's a good,
and
that's a good one.
There's a lot of neon. Like, my god, my eyes. Games that are meant to be trippy, but just ended up being a neon light nonsense, mostly because of overly complicated game mechanics and ass difficulty. Folklore is great. I've seen it once. It was pretty unique. American McGee Alice games? Yeah, that's a good question, actually. Bringing that back up for Unconventional Adventure.
Yeah, they should make a t-shirt for that game.
Yeah, I'd wear it. And then... And then, Cobra Space Adventure, yes. Cobra, go watch that. Yeah, I've heard it was good.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny. If you go to play the Sega CD game, it's actually a pretty good adaptation of that series, but here's the thing. It's actually the second game, and we never got the first. It's actually half of a game, half of a story, which is kind of funny.
It's the reverse Snatcher situation. It's the reverse. We got the full Snatcher in Japan. Didn't. Well, I mean, they did, but in parts.
It's a shame too. It's never been fan translated or anything. I'm sure it never will either. It's a shame.
All right, so for the question, Insane Buffoon asks, which game do you think has the best humor? That's tough. Like, it might depend on what mood I'm in.
Monkey Island 3.
I know Monkey Island in general has good humor. What is it about 3 that makes it stand out?
3 is the first one with voice acting. So they have since remade 1 and 2 and added voice acting to it, and that's really good. Mm-hmm. But the third one like just knocks it out of the park. It's also it has that hand-drawn animated style that it never went back to either. The first 2 games were very pixely, very like DOS era kind of stuff, EVGA. Well,
they look like Sierra's King's Quest games.
Exactly.
It was just LucasArts.
But the third game in particular is a moving cartoon and fantastic. Some of the best voice acting in any game ever. It's also laugh out loud funny. It's especially towards the end of the game. It's really a hilarious game.
Yeah, I gotta think about this because some games have like an overall good sense of humor. And some games just have really funny moments.
Yeah, like Snatcher has one of the funniest moments, but I wouldn't call it a funny game.
Oh, the Neo Kobe Pizza? Yeah. I mean, I quite like in God Hands when you first meet the Super Sentai team. Douchebags.
Love it.
Like, what? Just comes out of nowhere. And like when you beat Shannon for the first time, she just materializes a city bus and gets on it and drives away, and Gene just looks after it. A bus? It's amazing. But I also like Grim Fandango overall has really good humor. Like,
that's actually another LucasArts game, so it's same guys.
There you go. Yeah. It's actually one of the first jokes I remember in a video game that just really, really got me. It was the very beginning of the game. I was watching my friend play it because like a friend of mine in middle school actually had like the PC copy, and there's a part really early in the game where you're at the Day of the Dead festival, and there's this one clown, but everyone's skeletons, but the clown is just bitter and fed up with this shit, and he's so not in the mood, and like he's like, I could make all sorts of balloon animals for you. What shape do you want? I can make a dog. I can make like a bird. I can make a dead worm. If you ask him for a dead worm, he just gives you like an uninflated balloon.
That's actually you need
that too.
Solution, yeah.
But one of the funny things is you're like, I bet you can't make Robert Frost. And he's like, oh yeah, watch this. And he makes like a vague shape of a head smoking a pipe. It's fantastic. And if you have the balloon on you and you like use it uselessly, like you just shake it around, like, look out, like it's Robert, like watch out, pigeons, it's Robert Frost. It's like, what? But one of the jokes that really got me very early on was when you first talk to the clown, and he's just grumbling about his job, and he's like, man, like this job is just tedious, and my carpal tunnel syndrome is acting up. And you're like, carpal tunnel, but you don't have tendons. And his response is like, well, you don't have a tongue, but that doesn't seem to shut you up. And I'm like, wow,
favorite line in the whole
that's
game.
Like such a good line.
It is my favorite line in the whole game.
It's delightful.
If Pyro were here, I know one of the games that he would probably mill over would be Tales from the Borderlands. He's talked about a couple funny moments from that in the past on the show. Mm-hmm. There was one where like they shoot at like it was like a statue, and it actually like falls over and dies. Like,
Jesus.
Like,
actually,
really
there's
funny.
a really good, like, throughout like all of Portal 2, J.K. Simmons is Cave Johnson, just throwing in goofy bullshit like all the time.
And he's getting like more and more insane.
Yeah, so like, well, we have some bad news. Good news and bad news. The bad news is that the test you are going to be doing is canceled because a lot of the people who were part of the previous test have been injected with mantis DNA. But the good news is that now you can shoot up a whole bunch of mantis men. It's like, that's horrific. I also like the very beginning of the game when you first wake up from your who knows how long like hypersleep, and the game is giving you tutorials via voice acting. So the little robot buddy helping you out, Wheatley, is like, let's see if you're capable of doing the things you could before. Can you jump for me? And then it says, like, the little text prompt says, press A to jump. So you press it, you do a little hop. And it's like, good. Now, can you say hello? If you respond to me, say hello. And then the text prompt says, like, press A to say hello.
Oh, yeah.
And you press it, you just jump again. And he's like, okay, no, that's good, it's fine. And I'm like, oh shit.
Even
it's fantastic.
Like the last moment of the game is really
it's
kind
brilliant.
of a funny moment too.
Yeah.
Like the solution to the boss is pretty funny.
It's amazing. Even in the first Portal, just GLaDOS's constant passive aggression at you, like constantly. And even in the second game...
Smooth jazz.
Yeah, smooth jazz is the universal... Like, perhaps the smooth jazz will, like, let you relax, and they play, like, 5 seconds of it. But even GLaDOS in the second game, her passive aggression at you just for, like, being bitter at what you did to her in the first game, like, the first thing she says when she reactivates is, oh, it's you. And you're like, oh, fuck. Like, here comes the rest of Portal 2, I guess.
Here's one I don't think... you probably would have pointed out, but you'll agree. This is a favorite of both your and mine. Double Dragon Neon has some of the funniest
they have
goddamn
some
dialogue.
Brilliant humor in there. Yeah.
That's one of my favorites.
I think I've mentioned this before, but like I remember watching you play single player as Billy, and then
it's not nearly as funny.
Yeah, no, that's true because they have banter. But like I joined in, like not when it goes, do you want 1 or 2 players? Like I just press start because a second player could just jump in. So I by default I'm playing as Jimmy because you're playing as Billy. So it's great because Jimmy just leaps into the level and goes, "And Jimmy!" It just cracked me up. Like that's just his life. Just the number 2 character.
The continue screen is one of my favorites. It's just...
Oh yeah, it's one of those old school arcade continue screens where like Final Fight, like where your character's gonna die, but it's of Skullmageddon like going to do the Three Stooges thing where he pokes both of your eyes with his fingers.
I mean,
and like
granted that would be terrible because he's like a skeleton.
In real life that'd be terrible, but like when you press start to like stop it, the other brother jumps in and does the Three Stooges block by holding up his hand like karate chop.
So
and he
good.
catches the 2 fingers. It's so stupid.
You fight Audrey too at some point.
Yeah, not literally, but it's totally Audrey too. They also have a Bimmy and Jimmy reference, which I thought was genius. Bimmy and Jammy.
Yeah.
Also, even when actually speaking of the Audrey 2 thing, even when you're trapped in a capsule, like you're in one of those giant tubes that like the clones were in, when you start the level, I think it's Jimmy goes, "More like science unfair." And I'm like, ugh. It's so stupid. But even when you fight Audrey 2, it's not literally Audrey 2, but it's like you can tell it's a reference. Like they have like piano music playing in the background that's very reminiscent of Little Shop of Horrors. It's fantastic. And Skullmageddon's constantly making like stupid bone jokes, like time to make my marrow escape. What's funny is even when you beat him up, when you like knock him on his ass, he's like, "Ow, my fibula!" It's like, what? It's so good.
Contra Rebirth is also very hilarious. It's a love letter to Konami games, and also, you know what, Neo Contra as well is a hilarious game because as serious as Shattered Soldier was, like Neo Contra is a parody of that game essentially. One of the bad guys is literally a little dog. Like it's just goofy shit. Like you're riding a fucking dinosaur. You're running on helicopter blades. But
running on helicopter blades is the most ridiculous thing.
Rebirth is particularly hilarious because it has a sense of humor about its difficulty. Like it's really really complex humor. Like so at one point there's this ridiculous level where you are on top of a herd of robotic llamas. And in the regular game you're just hopping along on them. If you up the difficulty, all of a sudden they start shooting lasers at you on top of it, and
you knock off their heads, and it's like there's so much on screen as it is. And also they have stupid bullshit like ninja robots throwing shurikens. It's great. Well, actually, here's a really good game with a funny sense of humor that, speaking of which, like Contra making fun of itself, this game makes fun of its genre from the 90s, maybe early 2000s. You introduced it to me. Target Terror on the Wii.
There you go. That game is
a riot.
FMV the game, but great.
It's Area 51 or Lethal Enforcers, but like even stupider.
And made by the same people.
Yeah, that mini golf game is like, or that golf like tee off game is like the funniest shit ever. You're supposed to like hit the guys in the golf carts by like hitting them with golf balls that explode when they land.
And the golf carts like fall in the hole, and like the wheel
is
still
their wheels. Yeah.
Was dying.
What's also good is that like you're supposed to stop terrorists in the game, and they throw the word terror wherever they can. Like one of the mini games is like a quick draw game against like Kid Terror, bounty $1 million. It's like he's wearing like a cowboy hat. It's amazing. There's one of my favorite mini games, not to play but to watch, is like you're supposed to. It's almost like Lemmings, where you have to like turn off the things that'll kill your characters who are navigating an area.
Sure.
But like their acting on a green screen is so exaggerated and stupid, and they're sidestepping nervously through like the dumbest bullshit, like an acid waterfall. There's like a giant snake for no reason. There's a landmine. It is fucking funny. Another really good one is it's like influence the election, and you have to fire paintball shots at states. And, like, whoever covers more of the map and gets more electoral votes wins. But if you're playing against the computer and you lose, the spinning newspaper comes in and the headline is something like, for the first time ever, like, a machine wins the presidency. It's like, this is amazing.
I was like
crying when I saw that.
go over a couple sandbox comedy games. So this one's a favorite of ours, Jazz Punk. Oh my god, where do I
I
even
gotta
begin?
play that at some point. Like, I mean, I've beaten it, but I gotta let's play that at some point.
That might even be a co-op one.
Here's a pie, just like my mom used to make, and then you throw in his face. I have 3rd-degree burns.
That the first 2 levels in particular are like a pure gold. Like
by the end of the game, you're like, okay, I get it. But like when you first play it, it's the funniest damn thing you've ever seen.
He's like screaming like. You go into the movie theater and it has that stupid like toy commercial with the spinning
what the
head.
fuck? Oh no, there's that one like little wind up, like with a key wind up robot where it's like, hi, I'm like Lizzie the robot or whatever, and like after you talk to her like 3 or 4 times, she starts getting weird. It's like, let's be friends. Click again. I watch you when you sleep, and you're like, ugh.
Probably my favorite moments are the GoldenEye reference is like on fucking point. So you get you get burned and like the status bar from GoldenEye shows up.
Well, no, even what sets that up is funny because you're in a hallway and like pull the fire alarm and you hear like a ringing and the water sprinklers go off. Then it's like pull the ice alarm and I'm like, what? And the ringing happens again, but fire comes off of the ceiling, and then when it hits you, you go like, like in GoldenEye, and you see that the GoldenEye health bar, your frame rate,
the frame rate is the
your frame rate drops to like 10 or 12, like in the 64 game when too much shit's happening.
Frame rate drop.
That was unbelievable. They had an old school Warcraft 2 reference where you like click on a guy, he's like, yes, my lord. Job done. And if you click him like too many times, he explodes exactly like Warcraft 2. I was like, yes!
The call tree is one of my favorite things in the first level. I love that.
What was it?
The call tree, like you're going through like this inane like teleprompter system, or system where you have to press like 1 for this.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's so good. Press 666 for hell. Like
you just call him up.
Then there's
the Evil Dead thing, the pizza.
The Evil Dead thing is really good, but Wedding Quake.
Wedding Quake
might be my favorite thing.
Getting that combo, till death do us part.
It's a whole first-person shooter hidden in the game.
Your default gun is like a champagne bottle that shoots off its cork.
Just for a pun.
Wedding Quake. It's the dumbest shit. It's the best.
Similar to that style of game, there is Job Simulator for the VR.
PSVR.
For PSVR. They just actually put a sequel out, Vacation Simulator.
Oh.
And then there's also in the same line is like the same kind of game is Accounting Plus.
Limited Run Games is releasing a physical of that too, actually.
Yeah, that one's made by with
the Rick and Morty people, right?
Justin Roiland helped make that, and
you can hear his voice in there. He just yells at you.
Yeah, it's really good. You can barely concentrate because he's just yelling all kinds of like obscenities at you. It's just so funny. And then there's an actual Rick and Morty kind of sandboxy VR game as well.
Yeah, virtual Rickality.
So,
there's also funny Easter eggs and otherwise serious games, which are all the funnier because they're so serious. Yeah. Like the joke endings of Silent Hill, where like Silent Hill has almost no humor. Like sometimes, like heavy games will have goofy jokes, like Steins Gate, but Silent Hill is just not funny. But then the joke endings are, like, ridiculous.
They're so ridiculous you might not even laugh because they're like, what? Like,
and Silent Hill 3 has a couple of jokes in it, but only if you have Silent Hill 2 save data on it.
Sure.
Like, one of them is when you get home to your apartment. Not your apartment, but the lobby of your apartment building. If you check the mailbox, it's like, there's nothing here. But if you have Silent Hill 2 save data on it, it says... no letters, dead wife or otherwise, and it's like, hey! And there's one other part where, like in Silent Hill 2, there's one part where you have to get an item where you have to, like, reach into a toilet to get it, but it's in, like, disgusting toilet water. Like, it's fucking gross.
Yeah, it's awful.
Real, and you just have to reach in with your bare hand and, like, search for an item. It's disgusting. In Silent Hill 3... that's just not an option. But if you have Silent Hill 2 save data, you see Heather slowly approach the toilet, get closer, and then balk, and then she's like, gross. And then she looks directly at the camera and says, "Who would do such a disgusting thing?" I'm like, nice.
Wink.
Yeah.
Good stuff. I think that's a good... we named a lot of good stuff, including some obscure stuff that we in particular like. We also forgot the king of funny games.
Oh, no.
Frog Fractions.
That's true. And and Charles Barkley Shub and Jam Gaiden.
Yeah, those two are probably the two funniest games I've ever played in my life. Both of those.
I turn into a Durgar every Columbus Day. And I have an insatiable desire for gemstones.
A Bobo's Big Adventure is up there.
A Bobo's Big Adventure is way up there.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Where you just beat the shit out of, like, Amazon from pro wrestling.
I just, like, they punch, like, a Boboy in the fucking dick.
It starts off like Double Dragon, where they slug your girlfriend in the stomach and carry her off. They just, like, kick a Boboy in the dick, like, twice, and carry him off. It's just like, it's so stupid.
And he just has this look of, like, extreme pain on his face, just like in the grossest fashion. Like,
and there's all sorts of 80s references. There's a guy with a gun called Shooter Gavin, and you're like, I get it.
Probably my favorite thing was they had the glitch from Double Dragon, like...
Yeah, and you go to, like, a BDSM room, and you're like, what's happening?
I was just like, wait a second, I wonder if this works. And goddamn, it did.
Yep.
Everybody should watch our Let's Play to that. The map reveal of the Zelda level.
It's just a dick. It's like what everyone did when they got map simulators. It's like, I can make a penis, and, like, that's just in the game.
Yeah, but, like, the achievement you get is I see what you did there.
Yeah.
It's just so stupid.
Actually, speaking of the achievements and stuff on those Newgrounds games, there's also the Room tribute.
Oh,
the game.
yeah. That was made by other funny game makers, the guys who made the Behemoth games, Tom Fulp and
I mean, Castle Crashers. Castle Crashers is pretty famous, but easily his magnum opus is Domo-kun's Great Adventure.
Oh god,
or no, Domo-kun's Angry Smash Fest.
That game is impossible.
I beat the game multiple times.
Yeah, but you probably had to, like, put an infinite amount of credits to beat that game. That game is so fucking hard.
Nah, dude, it turns into Golden Axe and you just fight everyone diagonally.
Oh.
If you attack him straight on, you're fucking dead. You gotta do everybody diagonally.
Diagon Alley.
Yes. Nocturne Alley.
I actually heard the new Shadow Warrior is really funny too.
I heard that was good. I gotta look into that.
Yeah, West of Loathing. I need to play that a little bit more, but I know it's hilarious.
I still like that one part you showed me of Kingdom of Loathing, where you're fighting a guy and you're like, attack the enemy with, like, just like unarmed, and then it says, just as a professional baker needs the dough, you need the opponent in the face. 5 points of damage. I'm like, this is so stupid.
Oh, I forgot about what was it, the lollipop game, Candy Box. Oh yeah, Candy Box 2. Candy Box 2.
I thought you were gonna go Lollipop Chainsaw.
No.
Which is also quite funny.
Very funny game, but no, there's these clicker games called Candy Box, and then there's Candy Box 2, and it's like an ASCII game.
Okay.
And like it's one of those games where you have to click after you've earned so much of a certain type of currency, and then you have to move on to earning another type of currency once you get to a certain other part. Mm-hmm. The second one is so funny, and what they do with the ASCII, like it graduates. It starts off as just like a simple like text thing, but then they get really elaborate with the ASCII art out of nowhere. Like
nice.
it just like grows bigger and bigger. It even has a map at some point. It's top notch.
Undertale also has some really good humor.
Oh yeah.
Oh no! Actually, this is one you wouldn't expect humor in, but I still love that time in Eternal Darkness of all games in the world, where one of the sanity effects, you could save that game at any point unless there are enemies in the room. So just press start and go to the save option. And if you save on a file that, like, if you're overwriting your file, it'll say overwrite. A, yes. B, no. But you had a sanity effect that said delete like entire memory card. A, yes. B, no. And you're like, and you actually caught that too. And you were like, B. and then it shows like a little bar, and it's like deleting memory card. You're like, no! It's like the
I think
funniest
my
thing.
exact words were,
Yeah, B means no! It's the funniest goddamn thing.
At my fucking screen.
Yeah, I was laughing so hard because I've already seen it myself, so it was just funny to me.
Well, like, I knew most of the sanity effects and stuff at the time, but I didn't know that one in particular.
No,
so...
the sanity effect that really got me, was when you enter a new room and there are 3 enemies just right there, like right on top of your character as soon as you enter. Like, it's not fair. And the little message pops up that says, like, your GameCube controller, like, has been disconnected. I'm like, fuck! And I'm, like, scrambling to try to put it back in even though it's fine. And then, like, you die in like 5 seconds, but then it respawns you in the previous room. I'm like, oh, you got me.
Wow. Yeah, I think we named a lot of really good ones here. There are too many to count. I mean, there's so many LucasArts games that are hilarious. In particular, and you know, the company that succeeded them, Telltale as well.
Mm-hmm.
I also heard that the Bard's Tale, like the newer one for Xbox and PS2 back in the day, is one of the funniest. It has like some really like grade A dialogue options. Same thing with Alpha Protocol, which is no longer available, by the way.
Oh, actually, well, you know what? One more like a Sierra joke. In one of the Quest for Glory games, you can choose. I think in all of them, you could choose what character class you want to be. But you could choose to be a thief, and with the thief comes certain skills that you can level up as you progress through the game, and one of them is lockpicking. And the funny thing is, if you choose to pick like yourself, and you have a really low lockpicking skill, it'll say something about how you tried to pick your nose, but like you're so bad at it that like you press too hard and like impale your brain, you're just dead. You're like, what?
But if you have a high enough one, you successfully pick your nose, don't you?
I think so. And like even in those old games like Shadowgate and Uninvited, if you use like a sword on yourself, it's just like, okay, well, like you died. It's like, oh no.
I just remember dying in the original King's Quest by walking into the moat and not like knowing that you needed to tell yourself to swim.
I'm not even sure you could. In King's Quest 2, you certainly could.
No, I did it.
Oh, you are able to swim in King's Quest 1?
Well, oh, whoa, you mean swim? Well, I don't know.
Well, yeah, no, in King's Quest 1, if you walk in the water, you're fucking dead. But in King's Quest 2, there will be a part where you actually have to swim, and you type swim. But you have to do it pretty quickly, or you'll drown just like normal.
Yeah. I didn't get that was supposed to be funny.
Yeah.
Back then. I was just like, fuck this game.
Yeah, well, the Kingsfields, American Kingsfield 1 and 2, so Japanese Kingsfield 2... No, it's American Kingsfield 1, Japanese Kingsfield 2. Starts you off in an area where you're, like, surrounded by bridges above some water, and if you walk in the water, like, it's just, like, a fall to your death, like, immediately. Like, you can die within, like, seconds of starting the game. And it's like, okay.
Jeez.
Like, Kingsfield 1, original Kingsfield 1 had death pitfalls, but not, like, immediately when you start the game.
Well, we should wrap up. We named some good ones here, for sure. But we will definitely return next week with another episode of Reactive Consciousness on Tuesday. Hopefully with some more people.
Yeah, right?
They abandoned us. Nah, it's summertime. You know, what do you want? People have all kinds of things going on. But yeah, that is our show for this week. Please remember to subscribe to the Corrective Consciousness YouTube and SoundCloud pages. While there, please give us thumbs ups, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes. And please give us some more questions and reactions here. You guys over the last couple weeks have been doing really, really well. We really appreciate Living Corpse in particular dropped a whole bunch of questions on us.
No, Insane Buffoon did. But
Buffoon.
Living Corpse and like Dracologist have provided, and Insane Buffoon have provided consistent comments as well.
Well, and we even had a new name in there too, right?
That we did. Yeah, Anthony Cooper's been doing it. He's been doing it a few times.
Yeah,
it's really good stuff.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. Especially when we had a call to arms to tell people to come, you guys stepped up. So please remember to stay active. You know, we do react to all these, and we we do mention them all in the show because we have the time for it. So we might as well be as fan focused as we possibly can, and we absolutely love it. We love the fan portions. We even have a couple fans now that are regulars. As a result. So Dracologist and Lou Facaphon here are frequent hosts now. They're not even fans anymore, just fans anymore. So we love interacting with you guys. So any chance we can get, we will. So you can also catch us on Thursday or on Tuesday for our podcast Reactive Consciousness, the podcast where we what do we do on Reactive?
That's a good question. I think we talk about how Ziggurat was released on the Switch.
We did do that.
We talk about things that happen this week in our lives.
Yes, exactly. It's funny. I closed my script out a little too early, so I've been.
Now I don't know what we do on Reactive.
Yeah, I don't.
It's episode 156 of Corrective. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Finally, you can friend me as what's my name? Line. vysethebold on Steam, PSN, Xbox Live, Twitter, Battle.net, and Switch.
And you can follow me on my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince. And finally, if you are interested in seeing my videos early, getting in on exclusive live streams, selecting upcoming games for me to Let's Play, and getting involved in a conversation with me and other patrons on Discord, then perhaps consider swinging by my Patreon account, which can be found at patreon.com/LotusPrince.
All right, everybody. We'll catch you on Tuesday.
Until next time, everyone.
Bye.